Where are you mentally now that you've turned the page and you've retired?
I mean, truthfully, like all jokes aside, that's a pretty loaded question. Some days are better than others. I'd be lying to tell you if I've handled it, really, really well. But at the same time, like that first week was tough. But then at the end of that first week, we had our daughter. So I think I played my last game on Saturday, and then we went in the hospital for our induction on Thursday night.
Wow.
And, I had a lot of family and friends out for my last game here. So obviously, when you have people in town that, reality is a little skewed because you're around, a lot of people that you love and care about. And then, reality set in a little bit, and then I've kind of been busy with the kids. So truthfully, I've thought about it here and there, but I mean, it probably hasn't really set in yet. I imagine I'll have, a few moments here and there this summer that are going to be tough. But I haven't really had a whole lot of time.
Marty, what are those feelings that you're going through?
I think, like I said, it kind of comes and goes. It's a weird combination of sadness, but then also excitement. Obviously I'm starting this new chapter in my life with my kids, which is, how many people have the opportunity to retire and then just have two kids basically right away. So I mean, I think that I'm very, very grateful and thankful for all the opportunity that the game has given me. I think, it's just this weird, at times you feel, and I don't mean to sound dramatic, but like somewhat lost, like it's not like this is a super unfamiliar feeling. I mean, oftentimes I think like at the end of the season, you have that like 2-3 weeks, maybe month, depending on how far you go and things like that, you're like, well, all of a sudden my routine's gone. I don't have to be at the rink at 8 a.m. for a 10 o'clock practice. And, all of a sudden my day isn't structured the way that it normally is. And instead of a coach yelling at me, I have two kids yelling at me and dictating my schedule in the morning. But, I think that like, I'm a very routine based guy. I think my entire life, hockey has dictated my life in general, but then also from a day-to-day standpoint of having to do certain things at certain times and all of a sudden not having that. So that's what I mean in terms of like feeling lost, where it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And I've tried to establish a little bit of a routine. Like I know that I'm someone that has to work out. I have to expel that kind of energy or else I'm miserable to be around. But no, it's been a lot of different things. And I think that, sorry, this is a long-winded answer. But yeah, I think that there will be times this summer where it'll be hard. And then, imagine when training camp rolls around in September. And I guess to give you an example, we were talking about our off-season home. And it's about 4.5, 5 hours from here. So this past week, I drove a carload up there because we're obviously slowly in the process of moving back and moving out of Chicago. And I got to our place. I kind of did a lap around the property and make sure, inevitably trees fall. And it's like, well, what kind of job how many trees am I going to have to cut up when I get back here and things like that. And I walked over to our detached, like our garage where I have my gym off the back. And I walked in my gym and it was just kind of like a sudden rush of sadness. So that was a good example because I walk in and I see, where I've put in a lot of hard work and things like that. And, I have a lot of my memorabilia up on the walls, and it was just kind of like a sudden realization that, yeah, I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to use that gym, but it's a little bit different now. So I guess that's just, short answer. It's just weird. it's a lot of mixed emotions, but there are things like that kind of creep up every once in a while that it's hard, but everyone goes through it. So I don't think anyone's going to feel sorry for me. I'm very lucky to have played as long as I have. So all that said, it's like, shut up, Alec.
Hey, but I will say, for a team that didn't make the playoffs, that last Saturday with you and Patrick Maroon, that was really emotional. That was, even as a viewer, to sit and watch and know that both of you guys have announced your retirements, and then the end of game reaction from that crowd, and then the two of you at center ice and the hug. I'm telling you what, it put the hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, I kind of knew, not kind of, I knew that day was coming. I think that for a long time, I was comfortable with being done even last year, unless something, a good opportunity, piqued my interest over the summer. And it's just like one of those things where you prepare yourself mentally for it. I think for a long time, I was like, my wife kept on saying, like, are you retiring? Like, just say it. And while I knew I was, it's a hard thing to say, to actually verbalize out loud. And then, I had a couple injuries this past year that, essentially sealed my decision. But yeah, it was an emotional time. You think that you're ready for it, and then all of a sudden that moment hits, and it hits a little bit harder than you think. But one thing I'm going to say it 1,000 times, over the course of however many minutes we're together, but just like overwhelmingly thankful and grateful for it, and for a lot of things, grateful and thankful for what the Hawks did. For me in terms of making that night special. And for, I know I can speak for Patty as well in that regard. And, thankful for all the people that showed up, my friends and family. There was a few people that surprised me that were pretty special, and thankful for the guys, for making that special. And very grateful that I was able to share that opportunity with a guy like Pat. It's kind of funny, I guess the parallels in our career, we started around the same time. He and I, obviously, with him starting in Anaheim and myself in LA, which I'll get to in a second. We had a lot of battles against each other, and then a lot of mutual respect. Obviously, two kids from the Midwest. We each have 3 cups. He was a guy that I really enjoyed playing with this year, a guy that I had always had respect for. And we had known each other a little bit from the past, but and then ironically at the end or after the game was over, they gave me, or both Pat and I, the puck from our last goal. And ironically, my last goal was against the Kings, the team where I got my start. And Patty's last goal was against Philly, the team that gave him his start. Yeah. So, in a lot of ways, I think hockey can be poetic at times. And that certainly was a cool experience, a cool little anecdote, for the night, but really appreciative. For multiple reasons to be able to share that with a guy like him. Mainly just because I would feel wildly uncomfortable if all the attention was on me at that moment, but to be able to share it with him and then share that experience was pretty special.